Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but you knew that. If you didn't know that, you should have known that because I've been doing this for a while. And in any event, we've got a great show for you today. Mr. Verico over here has been kind enough to introduce me to some really extraordinary human beings that I did not know existed. And it's only because I hadn't gotten around to you yet, Kenneth, but sooner or later we would have. But John short-circuited that and brought you to us now. And I think that this is going to be a great show. And John, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce Kenneth and away we go about who he is and what he does and why he does what he does and all that stuff. Of course, he might want to talk about that too.
Yeah, I think we'll let him do that. Hi, everybody. It's John Verico here, your favorite co-host of Positive Talk Radio.
Or fellow host.
Oh, are my fellow host now? I've been promoted to fellow host.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Anyway, it doesn't come with any raise in pay. Well, it does because 0-0, but it's still...
I laugh, I scoff. There is no pay.
He added another 0. Yay.
With a decimal point.
Yes, but the decimal point is still at the wrong end. Anyway, so good. This is a wonderful opportunity. I had the pleasure of meeting Ken Hill through some other networking groups that we were both belonging to, and we're actually both co-authors in the Art of Connection book series. And it just was very intriguing to me. Ken is a martial arts pro and an expert, and he has been teaching martial arts to a very special group of children, special needs children, and focuses on not what focuses on what you can do, not what you were told you could not do. And I said, this is a dude that we've got to have on Positive Talk Radio so he can spread his message. Ken Hill from Burlington, New Jersey. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
If it were named better, I'd have to be twins to enjoy it. So, so Ken, we wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit. And Kevin, hasn't heard the whole story, so tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you got started.
Well, I've been involved in martial arts most of my life. I actually started it because of bullying. And my dad, who was a police officer, he took me to see one of my favorite all-time films, Enter the Dragon, featuring Bruce Lee. And I said, Dad, I want to do that. There was no school like that around that taught, with Bruce Lee style, but I started with Taekwondo. And it's been a blessing for me to be a martial artist. And I've been able to give back in so many ways that, it's just been an honor to do what I do.
Ken, you're not like a skinny little runt like I was in school. So it's hard for me to imagine you being bullied.
I actually was a skinny little runt in school.
Oh. 2 out of 3 of us. Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah, when I graduated high school, I was 5'7", 132 pounds. So I was not big at all. I was smaller than everyone.
The next to me, you were a giant, my friends. I was 5'3", weighed 110. So there you go. But
I was 5'8" and weighed 178 pounds.
Okay. Well, when I turned 19, I had a growth spurt. I'm now 6'1", and I'm 195 now.
Wow. I wish I had that. That would have been so nice.
And those of you who are on the audio portion of this podcast can't see, Ken's arms, man. He's got some impressive guns there.
Well, thank you. I I'm intentional about working out, not just because of martial arts, but because I also have a health issue that I didn't find out I had until my early 30s.
Is that something you want to share?
Sure. I started martial arts when I was 9. And when I was 22, my doctor said it's time to give it up. He said, you've been destroying your ankles. You haven't broken them, but you twist them, you turn them, you sprain them, strain them. He said, it's time to have surgery on both of them. Time to quit the martial arts. And he said, if you do all that, you'll be in a wheelchair by the age of 35. If you do not, it'll be sooner. Well, one of the things that my mom always said is, I don't care if there's 100 people in the room and they're all against you, you stand your ground for what you believe. So I declined, his recommendation for the surgery. But I did go out and get other opinions. I actually got 3 other doctors' opinions, and it was all unanimous. They all said the same thing. It's time to stop. I didn't. And I found out a decade later that I was born with a hereditary neuropathy called Charcot-Marie Tooth Disease, or CMT. And this nerve disease is the reason why I have small ankles, weak ankles. I've never had fine motor skills. I have issues with my hands when it comes to buttons, zippers, things like that. But I can grab a hold of someone and they can't get me off of them. So it's kind of weird how that works.
So how long ago was all of this? When they said no more and you said nay?
I was 22, and they said by the age of 35 you'll be confined to a wheelchair. And I just turned 60 a few weeks ago, and I'm still going.
That's impressive, young man. That truly is. I wanted to ask you, because I firmly believe my children did martial arts when they were kids. I firmly believe that not only is it great physically, but it's also great mentally and spiritually because of the lessons that are taught within martial arts and within the community. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. You're right. It helped keep me grounded because growing up, I was so frustrated with the way I was being treated and what I was going through physically that the martial arts helped me with my temper overall. And the reason why I say overall, because I did fight a lot, not only in the street, but competitively for 9 years. And the martial arts helped me to maintain focus in order to compete, but also it kept me from getting into major trouble in the street. Everyone got into fights growing up when I was coming up, but it was never to the point that you were trying to hurt someone. You just wanted to win. And the martial arts really help with that. But I really didn't understand the dynamics of meditation and the spiritual connection and things until I got older, because I was kind of fueled by my anger then, the first half of my life. And I turned to drugs and alcohol, and I even attempted to take my life 6 times. And it was this lady that I met when I decided to go get help, Mrs. Johnson. And she said, I'm glad you came in because I know you're going to be successful in this program and getting yourself clean and getting everything right in your life. And I said, why? And she said, because you came in on your own. It wasn't because of a court order or friends or family encouraging you. You did help. And no matter what I tried, it wasn't effective. She said, you'll be fine. And she was right. It was 2 weeks before my 25th birthday. I've been clean ever since. I don't have that desire to go back to that kind of living anymore. And I learned how to really dive into martial arts after that, to where I wasn't just a guy who knew how to kick and punch. I started to understand meditation and breathing and relaxation goes hand in hand with martial arts. So it's just been a blessing for me.
Well, Kenneth, I just want to say that I've been looking at your website and your school and everything that you're doing. I'm glad you've been successful at so many things in life, and I'm glad that you sucked at one of them, and because the world needs you to be here.
Thank you for saying that. And that's what I try to teach a lot of my students, because a lot of them over the last decade have been special needs. And oftentimes they go along the same journey that I went, where they feel like they're not worthy of anything because they unable to do the same things that someone else does. They don't process information the same way someone else does. And I was told, that I don't know what your gift is or how you discovered this gift, but you just have a way of treating them for who they are and not that they're special needs. And I tell them I learned it from my oldest daughter, who's autistic, because I didn't know special needs anything until her. And she actually turns 25 tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. She taught me that I had to learn more things, different ways of teaching her, different ways of understanding her. And she taught me to be an active listener. I learned the difference between hearing things and listening, when it came to her. And then I used those things that I learned from her to be a better instructor. Because a month ago was 51 years I've been in martial arts.
Good for you. Good for you. Learning how to listen is so important, regardless of what it is that you want to do, whether it's be in sales, whatever career you want, or to have a successful marriage, or to have a good relationship with your kids.
Any relationship, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be able to listen.
Yeah, I had a hard time doing that growing up, because if you sent anything to me I didn't like, I didn't want to hear it. It's like, yeah, I got you, Dad. Yeah, I got you. Because he was so funny growing up, and I'm grateful both my parents are still alive and well. They're 81 and 82 years old. And growing up, my dad had no gray area. It was either off or on, up or down, in or out. There was no gray area with him. And he said it wasn't until he retired that he understood sometimes there's a gray area. And we didn't get along growing up. Neither one of my parents, because they wanted me to fit into this mold that I just never fit into. And it took me moving out when I was 21 for them to understand I was just different. I wasn't better or worse. I was just different.
And that is an incredible mindset in and of itself, to understand that people can be different without being lesser than or greater than somebody else.
Yeah, and that's what I teach the kids, because even like my team and I, when we get them on the floor, we could have 10 autistic kids on the floor, but we treat them as individuals because they don't process things the same way. So we customize how we give instructions, or how we, show the visual of what we need them to do. And we make sure that they have it. So number one, they don't feel left behind, but also so they don't feel left out. And they understand that if they don't kick the same way as the next student, we teach them how to be just as effective with the way they kick or the way they move, that they end up teaching one another different techniques, and it just adds tools to the toolbox.
What's the age group of the kids that you work with normally, Ken?
The youngest is 4 years old, but all the way up.
All the way up to...
The oldest person I've ever taught was 80.
Wow. That is the spectrum.
And I'm willing to bet he or she could kick our ass anytime they wanted to.
She was very amazing for the simple fact that she, from the day one, she never tried to be like anyone else. She was a little shorter and a little smaller than most of the students on the floor, but she was so fast that she made up for the size. And that's what I keep telling people. It's okay if you're smaller because you have a different dynamic when it comes to everything that you do.
I like how you help people find what is special and unique about themselves, because that's really the key for everybody to be successful, right? Is to know what is good and special about your own self. And we're all so individual, but being able to identify and have recognized from other people that you have, something special that is unique about you.
Yeah, and I had to learn that about myself before I could teach it. I no disrespect to any instructors I had coming up, but they were very rigid in how they taught. They had their way of doing it, and everyone else had to mimic that in order to continue to, elevate through the levels. And I struggled with that, having the problems with my legs. So it took me longer to elevate, up through the ranks. And actually, when I was 20 years old, I started over as a white belt because I realized the only thing I knew how to do was kick and punch. I didn't know martial arts. And I was a third-degree black belt when I graduated high school, but that's all I really knew how to do was just kick and punch.
Wow.
So I
And
started the process over in order to learn how to become who I am now.
And so, as we're looking at you, those of us who can see you on the YouTube version of this. So if you're watching if you're listening to the podcast version of this, you want to at some point go back and check out the YouTube recording, because behind Ken is a myriad of trophies of all sizes back there. So that he took this stuff, really seriously, and took it to heart and found that uniqueness and put it to work.
The amazing part about the trophies is none of them were for competition. Every trophy that's here was for a martial arts Hall of Fame induction. I have 16 of them. And
You've been
I
inducted.
never.
I'm
What's
sorry.
that?
I can't let that go by. You have been inducted to 16 different organizations Hall of Fame.
Well, some of them I've been inducted multiple years, but yeah, I've been inducted in Argentina, here in the US. I've been put in for India this year. I've received inductions from all over the globe. I haven't accepted all of them, but I've even been nominated by Australia, by Italy, by South Korea. I haven't said yes to all of them yet because they would like you to be there, and I just haven't been able to make that kind of arrangement to be there. But I was always told that the following year they're going to induct me again. So there are many more inductions I could have received, but I never set out to get any of them. I just.
You are the most humble dude. I'm just saying.
Well, Kenneth, explain this to me, because I have no earthly idea how a organization in Australia would even know who you are. How do they know who you are?
There are practitioners from Australia that know people from the US that talked about me. And then they looked at my history and reached out to me and said, "We heard all about you and we know your background. We would like to include you in our Hall of Fame." And that's how I received it, the nominations for it.
And John is absolutely right. You're awfully humble for being so well known throughout the entire globe.
I didn't know how well I was known until 2022. The organization CMTA, they asked me to be their keynote speaker that year. And as much as I'm talking now, I just feel like I'm with family, so I can talk all day. But as far as giving a speech, I don't like that feeling of being in the spotlight and being on stage. I always say I have this syndrome called butterfly to bats, where I have butterflies until my name is called, and then they turn into bats. You know, the ones in the cage that are screeching and flapping around. That that's the feeling that I have when I speak, and then the words just come, and then I'll settle down, and by the time I'm done, I may be back to butterflies again, but all I want to do is get off stage. I prefer to stay in the background, just clap for everyone else, and go home.
So is this why you're wearing a Batman shirt, by the way? You're, you're keeping your bats in the bat cave, so to
Yes.
speak, while you're doing this interview.
Yes. Batman's always been my favorite, and that's probably why. Because even as a kid, it's so funny. When I was a senior in high school, my English comp teacher, I got F's in everything I did, every assignment, every test, every quiz. And that's because it was a college prep course, and you had to get up and give speeches. And I bombed every one of them. So they finally took me out of the class, but right before they did, she said, "What's the problem?" I said, "I don't know why you have me in here, because I'm never going to stand up in front of a bunch of people and talk about my life." And here I am.
See what you ask for. Sometimes you get what you don't ask for.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we won't tell you that this show has over 1 million listeners.
Oh, well, getting back to 2022. Getting back to 2022, I saw my neurologist a month later, and he said, "Thank you for doing that." I said, it was virtual, and I said it was actually harder virtual. I said, because I don't get any kind of reaction that way. And he said, "No, you don't understand. It was our biggest event. When people heard that you were coming, they tuned in from all over the world." He said, "It was our biggest event." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "People from 33 different countries tuned in to hear what you had to say." And he said, "No one's ever done that for anyone we've ever had in before." And I said, "I'm glad you told me now, after the event was over." So you could have kept that, how many people may be watching to yourself till the end.
They usually don't watch the live YouTube broadcast.
Okay.
Once this goes on the podcast channels, but by that time it'll be recorded. So
All right, fair enough.
Exactly. But now let's get back to the kids, because
this is so cool part,
especially the autistic kids, because it is something. When I was young and in school, there was no such thing as autism. There were just kids that were acting out.
Right.
And stuff. And now we are subdividing it, and there are all kinds of different levels and places and things that they're good at, and each child, each person is a complete individual. How long does it take you to reach those individuals from where they are, to be able to teach them and to understand where they are, so you can take them to where they want to go? I know that's a big question.
No, actually, it's not. It's actually a pretty fast process for me, because the first thing I do is have a conversation with them. And I ask them, "How are you today?" That's how I lead it off. And they'll tell me. And then they have what I call the scroll of excuses. They'll tell me all the things they can't do. And they'll tell me why they can't do them. And they go on this rant, and then I wait till they're done, and then I ask them, "How many things on that list have you tried?" And it's almost unanimous where they say none of them. So I developed an exercise for every new student. When you come on the floor, I ask you to hold up the hand you write with, hold out the other hand like a piece of paper. 60 seconds, write down everything you're afraid of. And of course, they'll give me a hard, like, why? It doesn't make any sense. And I was like, no, just do it. You'll understand. So I say, go. And they do. And you see the little hands going, and, you know, they're looking around and thinking of things. And it's so cool to watch them process it. When they're done, I say, follow me to the door. They come to the door, and then I say, take that piece of paper and ball it up and drop it outside. Come back in. Let's see what you can do. It just takes the anxiety out of the room. And they realize there's no expectations. You don't have to be like anyone else. I need to see what you can do. And then my team and I, we start day one and say, okay, we see how you're moving, or we see you have restrictions doing this or that. How about if you try this instead? And they'll say, well, that's not what he's doing. That's okay. This is your program. So once they see that it's custom to them, it just keeps them leveled, and they actually grow really fast. And I taught at another school for 8 years where the owner was a child behavior specialist. That's how I got started with the special needs. And when I came on the floor with them, they didn't know what to expect because I was considered an outsider. I didn't come up through his school and through his program. Well, my class on Wednesday, my class S, got to be so big it was causing jealousy in the school because no one wanted to go to anyone else's class but mine, because they didn't realize that they can learn a different way. And I realized that it wasn't about trying to outdo any of the other instructors. It was more about watching them grow and having them do things where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. You know, that kind of reward is the best for me. And I never got paid the 8 years I was there because I just wanted to be there to be a part of that. So it was never about a money thing or this is a great opportunity to do this or that financially. I wanted to see them grow because I understand the struggles they had, because I have them. And I still have them today, but that's not how I define myself, and I didn't want them to do it either.
I like that. I like how you said, you don't define yourself by your struggles.
No. People say, "Or aren't you disabled?" And I said, "Yeah, but that's only on paper."
Well, isn't it your experience that at some level we're all disabled? I mean, nobody's perfect, and everybody's got their issues, and some people are willing to understand their issues and accept them, and other people are saying, no, I'm perfect in every way, like Mary Poppins. But the reality is, aren't we all at some level? As an example, if you asked me to kick over my head, I'd end up on my butt. There's just no way that's going to happen.
But yeah, you then excel in physical comedy. See, so there.
Until I break myself, exactly, which happens more often than not. But has that been your experience, that we're all searching and trying to find our way, and it's really cool that someone like you's out there helping people find that?
Well, actually, it's a little bit different, my approach. I was asked by the parents, when the other school closed, what was the biggest thing you learned from teaching special needs? And I said, I learned that we're all special needs. We all have our ways of processing information, doing things that trigger emotions, and how we come up with methods to, navigate through those emotions. So I said, a lot of people are getting insulted by that label of special needs, but when I look at everyone I've ever met, we're all special needs.
Yeah. John, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I'm really am. Where the heck did you come from? I mean, to become who you are today, and I know that we are a sum total of all of our experiences, and the experiences that we've had in the past make us who we are today and lead us to where we're going to be tomorrow. But you have figured it out in many ways that a lot of people don't. Can you give us some tips on how you've kind of figured it out for yourself?
Yeah, I realized that, because, I believe in God. So I realized my biggest plans will never be as big as the plans he has for me. Like, this room is my vision board. People always say, why do you, sit there? A lot of times they think it's a guy stroking his ego. And I tell them, no, I said, this is my vision board, because when I've done vision boards in the past, they're pretty cool. They only had 2 or 3 things on it. One was to be able to walk, and 2 was a bunch of martial arts things. Well, when I come in this room, I realize I've done so much more than that. And every time I'm here, I'm thinking about what else I can do, which is why I'm back in school now at National Academy of Sports Medicine to learn integral balance training and corrective exercise, because I want to continue to teach more along with my martial arts, because I'm not just a martial artist. I take those experiences that I've had in life and I incorporate them into my teaching. So these kids, how you mentioned about how, you talk about, respect your parents, things like that. Well, they're life skills we teach them along the way, and teach them social skills. And a lot of the students who were being bullied are friends with their bullies. They didn't know how to express what goes on with me. This is what I got diagnosed with. I don't know how to control it. I got to take medicine for it. And then the bullies are like, oh, I just thought you were weird. And I didn't know why you kept staring at me. I thought you wanted to fight. And they didn't realize, no, I can't help that. That's just something that goes on with me. But they've been able to have a voice now and not feel afraid to say, hey, I'm not having a good day today, or this is what's going on with me today. Doesn't mean that I'm less than you are. I'm just having a difficult day today. And I teach them to have good days and better days, not good days and bad days.
That is amazing, because so many kids do not want to be called out for being different.
Right. And I let them know how great it is to be different. And it also keeps people on their toes when they think you're different, So growing up,
It's true.
growing up, I was quiet and shy, and I stuttered a lot. And I do every now and then, but I mean, it was just ridiculous when I was a kid. So that was another reason I was getting picked up. And being a police officer's son, they figured if they did anything wrong, they beat me up so I didn't tell my dad. It was just a lot of nonsense that went on. And it went on for 10 years. And
Wow.
even though the 3rd year is when I started martial arts, it's funny, I always credit my sister for the reason why it stopped. My sister's a year older, and she said to me, she goes, why don't you fight back? And I said, because I was told that if I do, and it's not self-defense, or I become a bully, I can't take martial arts anymore. She said, I'll tell you what, every time you get beat up, I'm going to beat you up. And I was like, you know what?
There's your big sister.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to get beat up twice. So I had this one fight in 10th grade, and it stopped with that one fight. And it lasted maybe 15 seconds total. And as soon as everyone heard that I fought, they're like, oh, he really does know that stuff. And they just, all the bullying stopped. So I always thank my sister for that every time I see her.
Your reputation preceded you. which is really cool, because you see a lot of kids who say, I'm a martial arts guy and all this kind, and people don't believe it until you prove it. But when they prove it, then they leave you alone, because they don't want to get their butt kicked.
Yeah, and something you said when I first came on, John, about me being an expert. I'm not an expert. in the martial arts world, that's actually an insult. I know you didn't mean it that way. And the reason why is because when you're called an expert, they think you know everything and you can teach everyone. And I'm always learning. So if people say, well, what are you? It's like, I'm a martial arts instructor or a teacher. And they're like, oh, you have a black belt? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, well, you just have one, right? It's like, no, I have 5. They're like, what do you mean you have 5? You're disabled and you're this. And it's like, well, yeah, well, I have 5.
How about if we call you a master student of life?
There you go. I like that.
I like that.
I like that.
That's a good one. That's a good. Well, the fact that you take such an amazing attitude and understanding that life is all about learning. I mean, we have to keep going. You have to keep learning. My father was adamant about that. He said, the day you stop learning is the day they put you in the ground. And it was always about pushing us to get out there and try new things and experience new things. And the fact that at 60 years old, you're going back and taking more courses and constantly still growing and adding to that. And my reference to you being an expert was not that you are the top dog, the top dude, and you know everything on the planet, but you have taken life and have proven to apply an expertise to your approach to life. And it's something I've admired about you since the first conversation we ever had. And I started to find out just how much you've accomplished, the kind of influence that you've had on others around you. And you're so freaking humble about it. That still blows me away. Every time we have a conversation, no matter what way, I learn more about you, and each time I become more and more amazed and infatuated. I got a little man love going on here, man.
Well, thank you. No, I just never been someone who was seeking attention. I just did what I did and never thought it was special.
But it takes a special kind of person to apply yourself the way you have, and to devote yourself to making things better for others around you.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, I have fun with martial arts, and I know that's why I've enjoyed it for so long. It's just been fun to me. And when people are like, well, how do you feel? I'm sure you're not flying across the room, doing those jumping kicks and all that. And I said, look, there are some days that I can kick the lights out. And then there are other days that I'm being taken down by those ninja dandelions, the ones where you're walking across the grass, they grab your ankles and pull you down. And I said,
there are more of those on my lawn than I realized, I tell you.
Yeah. And I learned to have a sense of humor about the bad things, to where, they weren't so bad because I'm here now. And that's what I had to learn. For as bad as they weren't so bad because I'm still here.
You're still here and you're still excelling.
Not only you are still here, but you are taking those experiences and giving your students and people around you the benefit of what you know and what you've been through. And as far as kicking the lights out, I have trouble turning the lights out, but that's a story for another. But it is amazing, Kenneth and John. Thank you for bringing him to the show, because people like you don't grow on trees. I wish they did. I wish there were more people like you.
The ones that grow on trees are nuts, aren't they?
Hold on.
He's gonna write that one down. He's like,
the ones that grow on trees are. I think that's another bumper sticker. So, but it's honestly, I got to say this because with teachers like yourself, and I consider you a teacher, And Kenneth, how many people have walked up to you that said, you were my martial arts instructor 15, 20, 25 years ago, and I want you to know that you changed my life for the better. I'll bet you that's happened a bunch of times to you.
Yeah, countless. And it I'm not an emotional person, but it was always hard to choke back the emotions when I would hear that, because sometimes I didn't even recognize them because they were just a little guy or girl on the floor, and then all of a sudden, they're adult and they're coming in with their kids, and they're like, "Yeah, you said something to me, like you said, 10 or 15 years ago that changed my life," and I'm like, "Really?" And that happened to me once with my daughter's teacher. I wasn't able to make it to any of the parent teacher conferences because one of the careers I had, I was a professional truck driver. So I've been to 46 states in Canada. When I finally met him, he said, "Yeah, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, it's great to meet you too. My daughter loves you. She talks about you all the time." He goes, "No, not that." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "You know another teacher here, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, she's the music teacher here." And he goes, "Yeah, she has two sons that were going to that school that you were teaching at." It's like, "Well, yeah." "Well, you saved her son's life." I said, "Well, how did I do that?" She said, "The reason why he ended up in that school and under, the owner's care was because he was going to take his life. And he wasn't even 10 years old yet." And I was like, "Oh." I said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "He came into your class and you did what you did with, write down, everything that you're afraid of, and you dropped it outside the door and then come in. And that was the first time he didn't feel like he had to prove anything. He didn't have to be like anyone else. He didn't have to know something. You just worked with him. And then you brought your daughter, and my niece used to come as well. She's autistic as well, and you guys were the ones that came to his birthday party at the bowling alley and bowled with him and hung out with our whole family, and you changed his life. It's like he's unstoppable now." I was like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah." It's like there's nothing he's afraid of. He keeps wanting to try new things just to see if he likes it or not. And I said, "I didn't know." He goes, "She never told you?" I said, "No." He goes, "Yeah, that's what you do. If I'm sorry that no one's ever told you, but that's what you do." And that meant the world to me to hear him say that.
We don't always have the opportunity to get that feedback, to know the impact that we had on others, but just the awareness that we do. And then when we do get that insight, it's an eye opener,
Yeah.
and it's a reminder that we have really a responsibility to the world to put our best face forward and to help others to find their best face.
Yeah.
And Ken, you're doing it, in every moment, in every interaction, and that's why I appreciate you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. And I've always been very direct, even with kids. I know they want a lot of them want the embrace. You just hug them and tell them to be all right. But some of the ones, especially with CMT, I tell them, "No, this is going to hurt. No, this is going to be difficult. Yes, that you're going to, for the next few days, you're going to say, 'Why did I do that?'" I said, what, but once you get through that, it keeps getting better. I don't want you to think that, okay, everything will be fine when you get up tomorrow, because it's not. Things are going to hurt tomorrow that didn't hurt ever. And they're like, "Oh." I said, "But I want you to understand how I got to this level is by working through that, and you can too." And once they realize they're not by themselves, then that helps to motivate them to want to continue. And I miss that because, I was telling you, John, I finally opened my own school last year, but it was only open a few months because the building I was leasing along with other businesses was behind a church, and the church was destroyed by an 11 alarm fire. So all of us vacated the church so that way they could resume, services while a new, structure was built. And I know using those terms, I was a firefighter too. I was a volunteer firefighter. So I understand the devastation of, of a fire. And, I just haven't had a new location yet because some of the places that I could have gotten, they're unsafe. And I'm a safety first kind of person. And with having special needs students, and some of them have walkers, some are in wheelchairs, things like that, it was just unsafe, whether it was the school itself or the environment around it. So I won't just go anywhere and say, oh, okay, I'll teach here to make a buck. That's not my motivation.
I think it's amazing and instructive for a lot of people that your community came together in support of the church and the folks that were in that. I assume it was a strip mall of sorts.
No, they actually had their own separate building on their property. The building was incredible. They actually had an indoor soccer field in there that,
Holy crap.
Wow.
and a gym, multiple basketball courts that they built over time behind the church. And they had different rooms that, people would rent out. I was one of them that leased one of the rooms. But, when the church was destroyed, there was really nowhere else for them to go.
So the tenants of that building, the people who were leasing in that building, gave it up and
Right.
turned the space back over to the church so the church can resume,
Right.
selflessly disregarding the fact that they now, yourself included, had to find a new place in order to
Right.
continue your business.
And not only
Exactly.
that, but it's all the renovations that they done to make that space their own, and all of those things they gave up to the church. That's a wonderful testimonial of community, of how
Yeah,
they all work
absolutely.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, a lot of the people that I've met through my journey have been selfless people, especially, in martial arts. You hear all the rhetoric about the hot shots and the guys that don't care. But I've met so many people that are just selfless people, and they work really well together. And I work well with many of them. There's different organizations that I'm a part of, and they asked me to come in to do my program there, but I will not. I need the freedom to just navigate on my own. And it
Good for
was no
you.
disrespect to their program. I love them and respect them and love what they do, but that's not what I do. So I need my own facility to continue the journey that I'm on.
So Kenneth, is it true if I were to say there are more Mr. Miyagi's than there are Kobakais out there? Do you have any
I
idea what I'm
don't know.
talking about?
I don't know, because I've met plenty of both, and I actually love that series, Cobra Kai. So
No, I'm talking more in terms of the first movie, which is Karate Kid.
Yeah.
But in any event, I know so little about martial arts. But I'm glad you're out there doing what you're doing, because you're giving kids self-worth at the same time that they're learning how to work their bodies and how to be kind and confident and all those things. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh no, it's like I said, it's I love doing it because, like I said, it's so much fun. And whenever the kids are like, "Oh, I want to be like you," it's like, "Nah, I don't want you to be like me." And they're like, "Well, why not?" I said, "I want you to be
like
better
you.
than me." Yeah, I want you to be better than me. And they're like, "Well, how's that?" And it goes right along with what you said. I was like, "Oh, just be you. You can achieve so much more because you're going to be able to navigate your journey sooner than I did." I said it took me a long time to get to where I am, and I said I'm going to help you get there in a much shorter path. And they're like, "Why?" I said, "Because I understand what it's like to feel like you're alone." And I don't want you to ever think that you're on this journey by yourself. I said, we're right here with you. My team, many of the instructors I have came from the old school when it shut down. So they understand the special needs kids. Some of them came up from white belts all the way up to black belt instructors through that school. So they've seen the different levels that happen, and they understand that even though mine is different, they love the calmness of mine. And they can just come in and be themselves, because all of the instructors, we teach differently. And I want all the kids to be exposed to all of us so they can understand there's different ways of success, even in this same building, whether what I'm doing works for you, or whether one of the other instructors, what they're doing works for you. My philosophy is, different path, same destination. And I was originally different path martial arts when I was going to start it with another instructor. Within 90 days, it was a disaster. So I asked him, could we just dissolve the partnership? And we were both respectful to one another about it. And I moved on, because I realized you can have the same drive, but without the same vision, it won't be successful. And we didn't have the same vision.
I really love what you're doing, and how you're teaching people how to break away from their fears and not be limited by what they think they can't do, and how you're helping people to appreciate their individuality. I love, you reminded me of something that I always have to remind myself, right? The only person that we should be comparing ourselves to is who we were yesterday.
Yes. That's an awesome way to say it.
I try to remember that myself too. When I see other people doing things, and I wish I could be like them. I wish I could do like them. I wish I could look like them.
Now,
just try to be a slightly better person than I was yesterday, and there I go.
maybe it's because I have a face for radio, but John, I think that you have a beautiful face yourself, and that you could not be John Verico if you were not the presentation that you are today, just like Kenneth Hill or myself, because that's who we were designed to be. So own it, enjoy it, love it, and by the way, your wife enjoys it too, so that's cool and stuff. But Kenneth, I gotta tell you, when you have created the legacy that you've created, that's going to outlive your physical presence here by a long way, because of the truisms and the way that you have treated people and the kindness that you've exhibited and stuff. You should be extraordinarily proud of the man that you are, and I know that other people around you are. They hold you with high regard. Do you feel that?
I do feel it, and I'm always grateful for it, because I don't take for granted that people are just going to be nice to you or say nice things. I'm grateful that they do. One of the things that happened in August that really is probably one of the greatest moments in my life is I was at a martial arts event in North Carolina. And on that day, I was presented the award, and the medal that's behind me which is a Presidential Volunteer Service Award. The organization said they talked to the White House a few years ago and said, we'd like to recognize martial artists for doing something more than martial arts, because there's so many that do so many other things. And when he told me, he said, yeah, we put you in for it, and instantly it was approved. That was very humbling, because when I've done my volunteer work, it was never because I was looking for recognition for it. And to have that happen is like my oldest daughter. I have to keep fighting with her because she wants it and she wants to hang it on her wall. But I told her, I said, well, you can have my presidential coin. So she's taking that. But but it's like that, I'm grateful for all the other inductions and awards and, black belts that I've earned. But the volunteer work has probably been the most special to me, because a lot of people don't understand, just to do something for someone without looking for anything in return is really priceless. And my time when I was a firefighter, it was always volunteer for 17 years, and teaching martial arts over the years and being recognized for it, that meant a lot to me.
Kenneth Hill Jr. has been our guest today. If they want to contact you, if they want to help you find and or fund a new facility, how do they get a hold of you?
I guess just email me at kenhilljr@gmail.com, and Ken with 2 N's.
Ken with 2 N's. And by the way, so that's Ken, Kenn, Hill Jr. @gmail.com.
Yes.
Perfect. And before we go, I would love for you to give us a moment or two of your advice on how to live a good life.
Well, the thing that I say all the time is just breathe.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
That is, it's amazing to me. We're gonna end up going over time on this, but I feel the need. No, I can't, because is it gone? I took it off. There's a song by Sisters J that's called "Just Breathe," and they work with autistic children and other kids, and it's just remarkable what you can do and what you're doing. Mr. Verico, it's been a pleasure co-hosting the show with you, and if you would like to give a closing statement, and we'll take it out.
Hey, all I can say is I was delighted when Ken agreed to come on the show. And like I said, one thing that I heard Ken say early on when I first met, introduced himself, and he says, I help people to realize what you can do instead of what you've been told that you can't do. And it is such an eye-opener and such a different perspective on life. And you're such a font of positive energy, Ken. And I thank you so much for being here on our show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
And you're going to have to come back. I am sorry. It's a rule.
I would love to. I would love to.
Love to have you back.
Indeed,
Thank
indeed.
you.
I want to thank. And if somebody wants to find you, they can go to Pennsylvania and find you, right? No, it's
I'm in New Jersey. Yes.
New Jersey. Go there.
Yes.
And thank you again, sir. And thank you, John, for bringing him. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at KM.